Welcome to this new course about React and Firebase. In this class, I will show you how to set up a fully functional authentication system. By the end of this course, you should expect to have a good understanding of the Firebase Authentication API and how to use Redux to manage your application state. As a result, you will have a skeleton code you can reuse for all your future projects. To take full advantage of this course, you should already have a basic understanding of how to build React components. This class will use hooks and functional architecture, but if you are used to the class way, you should be fine. In order to use the Firebase API, you will also need to activate the Google Developer account. This is completely free, and all you need is a valid Gmail address. So I heard the question one time of why someone that was wondering why they couldn't, just come up with their own security system or authentication system, and that's true. Like at first, you could just think, well, it's a way of creating a form with an email password, and then I'm good to go, right? I just have to store the password in my database, and that's it. In fact, cryptography is a field in and by itself. And it's a very, very tricky field where a lot of things can go wrong very quickly, very easily. For example, you could think of if there is a data breach from your database, which nobody wants, but it happens every year, even for the very big companies out there. And so you could wonder how you would protect your user's passwords if that occurs. If your data are out there, how do you make sure? What kind of encryption algorithm do you use to make sure that the passwords are safe? It's very complex, and it's much easier to inspire trust from your user if you tell them that you are using like a major authentication system protocol instead of your own that you came up with. Another aspect is that often new users will use the same password for several applications. So if you take the responsibility of coding your own authentication system, you also take the responsibility that if there is a data breach, then it could mean that other of their account or other accounts that they would use for which they had used the same password would be compromised. And that's really not something you want to be worried about. And all the resources that you would put to come up with a system that is frankly probably going to be less secure than if you were using Google or Facebook or any other managers out there. Those resources are not focused on the real goal of your application. So in short, and in summary, I would highly encourage you to not create your own authentication system. And if you don't use Firebase, fine, but find another one that suits your needs and go with this one. Several third parties already exist that would allow you to create an authentication system. Among the most famous, you can find Facebook, Google, GitHub, LinkedIn has one as well. So it's really more a matter of knowing the users that are going to be on your website. For example, a lot of technical websites would use the GitHub authentication system because they know that the target will often have a GitHub account, and so the friction for the users will be very low. For a more generic target, though, it may be better to allow several of those authentication systems on top of like a more common email password kind of thing. And that's where aggregators are coming handy. rather than having to implement several times the same thing. They would just allow you to activate some of those third-party systems, often with just a click, to be honest. That's the case of Firebase. Another very famous one is called Passport.js. It's really, really similar, just a different like name and not in the Google ecosystem. In this class, I will focus on Firebase, and just let me know in the comment if you want to have if you want me to create another class for another system. So by now, I hope I have convinced you that the right thing to do is to create a third-party authentication system. So in the rest of the class, we are going to create a React application that uses the Firebase authentication system. So let's hop on the first step and create a new React application.